Yeah, hi. This is Mani, Solution Engineer at PicOS. This video, I will cover configuring and verifying secured wired access for IP phone endpoints. This is using ISE. So it involves three major steps. The first one, we would configure a wired access policy in ISE. You can either use MAB wired access policy authentication, or you can use 802.1x wired access policy for IP phones. In this example, we will use MAB wired access policy for phones. The second step is creating voice VLAN in PicOS, which we will dynamically assign from ISE. The third part is test this wired access that we configured, and how do we verify it. So those are four simple steps. So before I jump in, I kind of want to show you the topology. So here is the topology. You see IP phone is connected to port number 23. So that port is already configured with MAB on the PicOS site. Okay, so let me take you to ISE and show you how we can configure this MAB wired policy. So the first part is creating an IP phone endpoint identity group. So we will create an identity group and add all IP phones to it. That'll be the endpoint identity group. So here we are on the ISE. I'm just logging in. So once I log in, I will go to creating groups. So here I am going to the groups, endpoint identity group. So basically I will click add and then create a name, and then I would save it. So what I've created is something called IP phone. I just put a description and saved. So once I finish that, I would click add, and any IP phones that was connected to the switch, it all will appear here. And the Cisco IP phone I connected, that ends with MAC address CB. So I just clicked this and then added. So that's what you see it here. So that is the first step, which is creating IP phone endpoint group and adding IP phones. The second part is creating an authorization profile, which will dynamically assign VLAN 800. So in terms of policy, I just want a quick run over. So we are choosing MAB authentication method. The voice VLAN we are going to assign is 800. You can optionally dynamically assign an ACL. For phone, I chose not to use a ACL, but I'll show you how to do it in case you need to do it. Dynamic VLAN, I'm creating this name, PicOS Dynamic Voice VLAN, that will assign 800 dynamically. And then downloadable ACL, either dynamic ACL or downloadable ACL, I'm not using it. On the policy set, I'm going to be calling general access. So that's how I'm going to create the policy. So let me go to the authorization profile. So we are in step number 2, creating authorization profile. So I go to results, authorization profile. In here, you just click add to add a new profile. I'm going to call it PicOS Dynamic Voice VLAN. Access type will be accept. Main thing you need to do here is select VLAN, and in our case we are going to put 800. That's going to be the voice VLAN. And most importantly, you need to pass a attribute. You will select PicOS and PicOS AV pair, and then enter this command, PicOS traffic class equal to voice. That way it knows it needs to dynamically assign a voice VLAN to the device. and then you will click submit. So that's how we did authorization profile. In case you want to add a ACL, you create another name, IP phone ACL, click here and then enter the name, in which case you won't be selecting this. So that's how optionally, if you want to add a ACL, you can do it. So currently I'm only assigning VLAN dynamically, not ACL. So we were at step number 2. So the final step is to create IP phone wired policy, right? So let me show you how to do that. So you come here, click on policy sets. Basically, you will click a plus sign. So this is the new policy. You will enter, general access, and then you click this plus. Basically, we are going to use wired map. So I will just pull this in and put it here and click use. Since I've already done that, I'm not going to do it. Basically, I'm going to delete this. I'm just showing you how to do it. So I already did this, general access, wired map. That's what I chose. Default network access. So click in here. So 2 things we need to do here. First is you have to set authentication policy. So this is going to be endpoint-based authentication. We have user-based authentication, endpoint-based authentication. So you will select internal endpoints. And you will select these options. If authorization failed, reject, user not found, reject, if process failed, drop. So that's what you will do under authentication policy. Then you click on authorization policy, and you will create a new rule, like you click plus and then enter a new name, IP phone voice VLAN. In conditions, what I have selected is identity group name equals the one that we created called endpoint identity group IP phone. So I selected that. And then in here, you can choose any authorization profile you selected, you created. So when you kind of put here, you will be able to choose anything you have already created. So in this case, we are going to use the one we created called PicOS dynamic voice VLAN, and then you will click submit. So that's how you do policy. So we have done configuring ISE. Now what we are going to do is create VLAN on the switch. So let me show you. So you can dynamically assign, but before assigning, you need to create VLAN on the switch. So I would run set VLAN ID 800. So that way VLAN is created, ready to go, and you push dynamic VLAN on that port. So the port configuration is already done with the map access, in which we saw in the last video. So I'm not going to go into that. So the next part is test wired access. So now we are going to connect the phone into port 22. So one way I do it is, that interface is disabled. I'm currently going to enable it. So I'm enabling the interface, and then if I look at the interface, you can see like nothing is there. Like the phone is currently coming up. First, you will see it unauthorized. And then ISE policy will kick in. Once the ISE policy kicks in, voice VLAN will be assigned. So that's what we are going to see in a minute. So this is the verification. So, this is the client MAC. It's currently authorized. Authentication method is MAB. The traffic class is voice, and 800 is assigned. Other thing you can check on the PicOS is check the VLAN. So I'm checking the VLANs. You will see 800 port 23 is dynamically assigned. So what we did is we verified on the PicOS side. Now I'm going to show you how to verify on ISE. So you go to the ISE GUI, operations live logs. I'm just checking in last 24 hours. So here is the CB. So I click on the details, and here it is. It shows general access, IP, phone, voice, VLAN, and it used. The result was it pushed the policy PicOS dynamic voice VLAN, and you will see all the details in here. What it tagged, the whole thing. So that concludes this secured wired access IPP endpoint demo or training.